What's up everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at the Nike Pegasus Trail 3, which features some much needed improvements over last year's model. So let's get into it.
To the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road, all on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Write my name in the stone. Cause I'm coming back home. Cause I'm coming back home. Right back where I left.
Well, thank you again so much for stopping by. Nike has called this shoe a road to trail shoe, meaning that they're taking a lot of things from the road version of the Nike Pegasus that has been going for 38 years now, and they're bringing some elements of their trail running line and they're kind of like combining them into one shoe, which is this right here. I have a lot of opinions about this shoe. There's some really good things. There's some things that you need to watch out for. I'm at about 75 miles in this shoe, and so I feel like it's time to kind of give you my full review. I was just able to run 33 miles in this shoe out at the Western States 100. I was pacing a friend, and so I went almost the last third of the race, and I had a pretty good experience in this shoe. It's very well suited for trails like that. I have also been able to run quite a few miles in this shoe here in the Midwest in Indiana where I live. I did a 15-mile run this past weekend where it was pretty much half roads, half trails. And just so you know, before we get any farther, I did pay for this shoe. Nike has no idea who I am, so they're not sending me shoes. Just to throw a few specs at you about this shoe, the heel has a 24.5 millimeter stack height and the forefoot has a 15 millimeter stack height, giving you a drop of 9.5 millimeters, which is pretty typical. A lot of Nike shoes have a around 10 millimeter drop. And when I weighed this shoe in my size 11.5, it weighed 12.42 ounces. So this is not a light shoe when you compare it to what's out there on the market right now. But when it comes to trail running shoes, a lot of them do feature a lot more coverage with their rubber on the outsole. And that's just to protect you from all the elements like sticks and rocks and roots. And in this video, like the rest of my shoe review videos, we're going to talk about four things. We're going to talk about the fit, ride, performance, and appeal. And then after that, I'm going to tell you what's the deal. So first up, the fit. I always get a size 11.5 in running shoes just to make sure that I'm comparing them all equally. And then if I do have to size up or down, I will return that shoe and I'll let you know. In this shoe, 11.5 fit me just right. I had no sizing issues. Comfort was pretty good right out of the box. The midsole is a full heel-to-toe Nike React foam, and I really like the Nike React foam, especially for trail running. It just really works well for me. The upper was the thing that kind of had to get used to my foot a little bit, to flex with my foot and kind of learn how my foot moved over time. One of the big things that they did change from version 2 to version 3 is they gave it a completely new tongue. And this tongue is a little bit similar to the Wild Horse, where it's got a little bit of a padding right here under the laces. And this was a major improvement, because in the version 2, it was a very thin tongue and it had some holes where I guess Nike's thought with that tongue was that the holes were going to help cool your foot maybe, or help expel water or something. But all it really did was let dirt and dust in, and it was also a little bit too thin so that when you were going downhill, the laces did tend to hurt your foot. But happy to say this is a major improvement. Sticking around this same area, the lacing system is one that I do actually really like. It has some extra fabric that goes from the laces all the way down to the base of the shoe on each side. And what this does is when you tighten your shoe, it kind of tightens around your foot. It's a system that just gives you a little bit more stability, especially on the downhills, I've noticed. Swinging back around to the heel cup, there is one thing that I wanted to mention about this shoe that I didn't really like very much, and that is, if you can kind of see here how this, when the shoe flexes, it opens up wide like that. Well, I can't exactly produce it here unless it's on my foot, but when the laces are tied tight and the foot flexes, it does like pop out on both sides, and it presents a lot of opportunities for rocks to get in there. And so that's one thing about this shoe that wasn't the best. Aside from that, the heel is really nice. There's no slipping, uphill, downhill. Didn't have any problems with it at all. My Achilles was never bothered by this point right here. And the pull tab was kind of nice. I don't really use pull tabs a whole lot, but if you do, this is a good one, and it kind of stays out of the way, very light. The heel does swoop out pretty good amount back here, and I did get it caught on some roots and rocks a few times. I never fell because of it, but it was a little bit annoying. I know why it's there, and it's for going downhill to absorb a lot of that impact. I just wish that they could kind of shave that off, and I'm not a huge fan of like these big swoops out back here. Moving back around to the front, to the toe box, I had no issues with this. The Nike shoes just really fit my feet very well. It's something that I really appreciate, that their toe boxes are just a little bit wider. As far as breathability, these shoes do kind of, I feel like, strike a pretty good balance between protecting your foot from dirt and dust and rocks, and also being breathable enough that you can get by. This is always a difficult thing with trail running shoes, because the more breathable they are, the dirtier your feet are going to get. A lot of trail running shoes, it's very difficult to kind of strike that balance between, like I said, protecting your foot and being breathable. All right, let's talk about the ride of the Pegasus Trail 3. As I mentioned before, the full length of the midsole is Nike React foam, and I just really like this type of foam a lot. I feel like it's responsive enough on the trail to give me a pretty good feeling of where I am and a good proprioception of the trail and all of that. But it's also cushioned enough that I can run really long miles in this shoe. As far as the landing goes, the outsole is pretty much a flat surface. You have plenty of real estate to step down on the trails with. You're not going to be missing any big chunks in the center or any big cutouts or holes for rocks to get into. Nike has said that they designed the lug pattern on the outsole based off of a bike tire, and I don't know, I guess I can see that. But the thought is that you ride your mountain bike straight out of your home, like on the roads, and then you get out on the trails. I don't know, it does work. Didn't really get in super muddy conditions with this, and I would be very leery of this shoe in really muddy conditions because the lugs are not long at all. This shoe is really meant to be run in dry conditions. The energy transfer of your foot to the ground and then back was great. The React foam, again, like I really like this foam. The forward rock was pretty good on this, and since the shoe is based off of the Road Pegasus version, I do really feel like it benefits a little bit from that, from the design, from the cutout of this outsole. I do feel like when I was landing and pushing off, I was getting a little bit of assistance from the foam and also that 9.5 millimeter drop. All right, let's move on to the performance of the Pegasus Trail 3. I feel like this performed pretty well. I'm not gonna like sugarcoat it and just tell you that it's a Nike, it was great, because there are some things that weren't great about this shoe. The React foam was awesome. I really love this foam. However, the outsole being pretty minimal trail outsole, you are gonna have some problems when you get into more technical stuff. Some situations where it's starting to get wet. This is going to feel a little bit more like a road shoe in those situations, and you're probably going to lose a little bit of the control that you normally have on something that's a more aggressive outsole. The upper also, when it got hot, when it got sweaty and wet, it took a while to dry. Coming out of the American River at Western States, it was in the middle of the night, but it was also still blazing hot. My shoes didn't dry for like probably almost an hour, and that was kind of a concern because, you know, when your feet are wet, you're more opportunities for blisters, things like that. So I would have liked to see this shoe dry quicker. Also, just recently this weekend, I was out and it was over 90 degrees, over 90% humidity, 4 hours on the trails and the roads, and my feet were just absolutely soaked, and these shoes got heavy, they were wet, they stayed wet. So those are some areas where I would like to see Nike improve the performance of this shoe. It still feels like an early version of this shoe, even though it's the third version. It still feels like they're trying to figure out exactly how to execute this shoe. So let's talk about best distance, best use of this shoe for a training run or race. Like I've said a couple times, 33 miles out at Western States, so 50K did just fine. I feel like this shoe could easily be a 50-mile shoe. 100-mile, maybe, although I would be a little bit worried about some of the features of the upper. Would not have any issues with the midsole or the outsole if it was a dry race though. If you are going into a race that is going to feature quite a bit of roads, this would really be a really good shoe for that because of all of the features that they're bringing from the road Pegasus. So even though Nike is saying that this is a do-it-all shoe, I don't agree with that. I don't think this can do everything. It can be really great for a situation where you do have a lot of roads and trails, like that 50K or 50 miler that's maybe half and half. This would be a specialty shoe just for that. So as far as the life of this shoe, I don't have any concerns, and that's mainly based on the React foam. In my experience, this foam just keeps going and going, and it doesn't really wear out as quick as other foams do. The upper, there's no tearing or wear. Yeah, it's dirty and it's banged up, but I've been running on trails in this. I don't have any concerns taking this to a couple hundred miles. I could easily see 300-400 miles out of this shoe. So let's move on to the peel. What do I think about the looks of this shoe? Well, if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I like colors, you know I like flashy shoes, and so these shoes get a really great score from me. I really like the colorways of this shoe. The purple and green are just awesome, and the touch of yellow, it's just really great. And the midsole, like, it's really dirty right now, but I've been showing you some pictures of what it looked like when it was new. It looks like cookies and cream ice cream. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? All right, and finally, what's the deal on the Nike Pegasus Trail 3? I think $130 is fair. Honestly, with the React foam, the way it feels, the way it rides. As I've been alluding though, this probably shouldn't be your only shoe. You're gonna need some specific like hardcore trail running shoes for when it rains and when it gets really muddy. You're also probably going to want some road running shoes for when you're just running on roads. So this is probably going to be maybe somebody's third pair of shoes. But I would definitely say consider where you run and what the surfaces look like, and then maybe decide if you're going to benefit from a pair of these shoes before you go out and buy them. All right, that's it. That's my full review of the Nike Pegasus Trail 3. A very interesting shoe with some really big advantages over other shoes, but also a few things that I feel like Nike definitely needs to improve before this shoe becomes a really solid option. If you like this video, definitely stick around, because over the next couple days, I'm filming several more shoe review videos, including another Nike trail shoe and some other brands. So with that, as always, thank you guys for stopping by, and I will see you again soon. Bye.
To the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road all on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name.